How urbanization took a different turn with the coming up of colonial era. That's the question for today, which we are going to ask from Devdutt Pattanaik in Art and Culture with Devdutt Pattanaik. Hello everyone, I am Manas Srivastava and you are watching Indian Express's UPSC Essentials, and we are in conversation with Devdutt Pattanaik, where we study a lot of things about art and culture, and in the process we also touch upon things related to history, society. You get a lot of takeaways for your essays and for your GS papers, not forgetting information related to prelims examination. So as you all know that we've been talking about urbanization. We started really from the definitions, and then we've covered the ancient period, we talked about the medieval period, and today is the time when we are going to talk about the modern period or the colonial era. But before going ahead, I would request you all to go back to our previous episodes, brush up your knowledge about this topic. We have really covered it in detail. Devdutt talked about all nitty-gritties about this topic, took various interesting examples which can act as a rich fodder for your examination. Also, please stay tuned till the end of this episode, because this is probably the last episode on urbanization. We will take up another topic in our next episode. So I'll just sum up a little bit about what we have done so far related to the topic of urbanization. Okay, so now let's begin with the first question. Okay, the first question, which is related to colonial era and urbanization. Devdutt, if you can simply tell our students that how urbanization took a different turn with the coming up of colonial era. What are the important things which students should keep in mind?
So about 400 years ago, 500 years ago, the British come into India. The British come to India in the 1600 AD, but 100 years before that it is the Portuguese who come. The Portuguese are the people who have discovered the sea routes. They come to Kerala and they start colonizing the coastal part of India, especially the Konkan coast and parts of the Coromandel coast, and they are the ones. Goa is established and a new form of city starts to emerge, which ensures European influence. So churches start being built and the landscape changes again and a new form of urbanization starts. The colonizations, remember when the British come to India and the Portuguese, they're coming to trade. So when they use the word forts, they are really talking about warehouses. And the big cities of India today, that is Mumbai, Chennai, Kolkata, are really began as forts or warehouses of the British, the French, the Dutch, the Portuguese. They all sort of building these little things around the coast, and that is the beginning of these cities. But they really change remarkably when the British start taking over the country after 1757, after the Battle of Plassey, and something changes in the world. New things emerge. We have something called industrialization happening and mechanization starting, and therefore industries start being established. More than industries, India becomes the land from where raw material will go to the factories in Europe. In order to get these raw materials taken there, what is the easiest way to do it? It is through railways, and railway starts to appear in India, and that creates a new form of urbanization, what we call the colonial cities. And what is the hallmark of a colonial city? There will be a railway station. Never forget that. Railway station is one thing which they bring in. Second is the courthouse. The courthouse. The British said these people don't have a proper legal system. I will control the legal system, the law system. That's why they created the penal code based on the Manusmriti, based on the Sharia, based on common law. And they said, let's create a courthouse. So a city, a colonial city had a railway station for plundering India's wealth through the trains. Then you have a courthouse which establishes the legal system through which you control, power is controlled. So there's an economic part of the city. The railways represent the economic parts. The courthouse represents the political part. And then something very interesting, they start building clock towers. Clock towers are built to tell you the time. Everybody has to follow a bureaucratic time. The office will start on time. And this new military way of thinking becomes part of life, very different from the old model where sunrise and sunset decided the day and night. Now you have the clock tower telling you what the time should be, when should you go to office, what time is the meetings. So time now, everything becomes mechanistic, everything is being, measurement plays a very important role. That's what the British do. And then of course universities start to be built, schools start being built, colleges start being built, because they need clerks to work for them in the bureaucracy. That's the famous Macaulay statement that we cannot follow the traditional Indian model.
Devdutt, I'm sorry to just interrupt there. I really want you to explain our students this when you say what traditional Indian model. What do you mean by that? And with the coming of Britishers and the colonial era, what actually changed there?
The traditional Indian model meant that you have to belong to a particular caste to be part of the bureaucracy. The Kayasts, the Brahmins, got a privileged position in court, and it was hereditary. A king would call Brahmins or Kayasts to work in his court. When the Muslims came, they would get the Persians, they would get to work in the court, the Turkish people to come in their court. But when that supply became difficult after the Mongol invasion of the 13th century, they started hiring local talent, the Jain courtiers, Gujarati courtiers, and the British said, no, this doesn't work for us. This caste-based system doesn't work for us. We want to hire talent. We wanted people to be educated in our systems. So they created schools. So people went to schools. And then, of course, they saw these caste issues that, Jains will eat in a particular way. They will not eat with Muslims. Muslims won't eat with, want their halal food. All this created a lot of irritation in the British, and they said, let's get people who are like us. And that is really the time when the Parsi community, which lived in the coastal part of India, they had come to India around the 8th, 9th, 10th century to escape persecution from Iran, from the Muslims. They lived in Sanjan, Gujarat area, and they became very, very popular with the British because they ate all kinds of food. They did have their own caste rules, but they were far more amenable, and that's the British suddenly realized that the bureaucracy, they benefit a lot by working with these Zoroastrians who, like them, did not like the Muslims, and who, like them, were not comfortable with the Hindus either, but seemed to understand the Hindu way of functioning and were good businessmen. So new cities start to emerge, and if you see cities like Mumbai, Calcutta was the original capital before it shifted after 1857 to Delhi. In the early 20th century, it shifts to Delhi because Delhi is where power really resides in India. And you find the new colonial cities marked by railway stations. Always remember the railway station, the high court, the university, the clock tower. These are indicators of colonial urbanization.
Okay, that's very interesting. And I would also like all our aspirants and students to note these indicators. These are good indicators that you can mention in your examination as subheadings. When Devdutt talks about railway stations, courthouses, he mentions clock towers, universities, and how these things, these elements are changing the landscape and affecting even the history and culture. Now let's move on to the next question. And I was just wondering if we can take an example. Okay, and understand this whole phase of urbanization in the colonial era through an example. And what other than Delhi? Okay, so it's a good way to study urbanization with an example of Delhi. And let's talk about Delhi, its various stages of urbanization. Devdutt, if you can help our students with that.
So one of the questions that people keep asking is about Delhi. Delhi is the center of India, is the center of power, and for 1,000 years has played a very important role in Indian politics. But it's a good way to understand urbanization in India. Mythologically, and it is said that you have painted grey ware pottery there. So that is about 3,000 years ago during the Vedic period. Perhaps there was a settlement here, and this was the Indraprastha settlement of the Pandavas, and it is said that this is the time when the Kala Bhairav temple, which is currently near Purana Kila, was established by Bhim. So that is the first sort of reference to a settlement in Delhi, after which we have a settlement during the Rajput period before the Islamic period. The Tomars and the Chauhans built a settlement called Delhi. They spoke a language called Hindavi, and this is where the first city of the Turko-Mughals emerges. You have the Mamluk dynasty establishing. Mahmud of Ghori comes and establishes his rule here, and it is marked by the Qutub Minar. Now, the Qutub Minar is not like a typical minaret of a mosque. This is a part of a pair. One pair of this minar is found in Afghanistan. It's called the Minar of Jam in the city of Jam, and then there is the Qutub Minar over here in Delhi. They mark the two ends of the frontier of the Ghurid dynasty. Two brothers ruling it, the elder brother in Afghanistan, the younger brother in India. Now, this way of controlling across the Hindu Kush is not unique to this period. Remember, the Kushan kings also ruled this vast stretch on either side of the Hindu Kush, because this was a major trading route, what we call the Silk Route. And this is the first city symbol is the Qutub Minar. This is when the mosques start being built. After Mahmud of Ghori, it is the slave dynasty or the Mamluk dynasty, which takes over of Aibak and Altamash. They start, the Mehroli area is where the slave dynasty has some of their mausoleums, some of their mosques. The earliest mosque built by the Sultanate. As I said, mosques are part of the fourth phase of urbanization. After this, you have the new kings. Every time a king would come, he would build a new city, a new mosque, and his own mausoleums. So if you look at the dynasties which are emerging, everyone is creating a new city, right? So you have the Mehroli region, where you have got the Mamluk sultans building their structures. After the Mamluk period, you have the Khilji, Alauddin Khilji, who established the Siri fort. Now, this is the time. Siri fort is a place where a lot of refugees are coming, because during Alauddin Khilji's times, Mongol invasions have taken place. They come right to the edge of Afghanistan. Lots of people are migrating into India, Persians, because they destroyed the city of Baghdad completely. Baghdad is in Iraq, and they're burning Central Asia. They're burning parts of Afghanistan. So it's part of Iran. Everything is burning. Mongols are a terrifying force. They don't really enter India, but the Khiljis played a very important role. But lots of people are coming, and therefore they built the Siri fort with thick walls to protect the new refugees. So that Siri fort is another fort which happens. After that, you have the Tughlaq kings, you have Tughlaqabad, Firoz Shah Kotla, then you have Lodi coming in, Lodi building, the Lodi gardens in Delhi. These are built by the Lodis, and then you have the Mughals coming in, and so you have the Purana Killa being built. Purana Killa means the Naya Killa is the Red Fort. The Purana Killa was built by Humayun, and then there's Sher Shah Suri, who was an Afghan. He is playing a part in the Purana Killa, after which you have the Shahjahanabad, which was built by Shah Jahan, which is the Red Fort, which is built after Shah Jahan. You have then the Lutyens Delhi being established by the British. So you have these cities emerging in Delhi, one after the other. Starts with Indraprastha, then starts with the Rajput capitals, then it is the Mehroli region of the Mamluk dynasty, then you have the Siri fort of the Khiljis, Firoz Shah Kotla and Tughlaqabad of the Tughlaqs. Then you have Lodi's city. After the Lodi city, you have got the Purana Killa of Humayun and Sher Shah Suri. Then you have Shahjahanabad, built by Shah Jahan. Remember, Akbar does not really build in Delhi. His father's tomb, Humayun, is located in Delhi. There's Nizamuddin Aulia's Dargah, which is located in Delhi. But Akbar favored Agra, and Shah Jahan brings the center back to Delhi as Shahjahanabad, the famous Red Fort, which is built, which was a major city within the city with lots of things, which was all destroyed in 1857 by the British. And then the British established themselves, and they became the imperial power. They established what is called Lutyens Delhi, the Rashtrapati Bhavan, the parliament structure, and now, of course, we have a new parliament in the same region. So that's how the cities emerged slowly in Delhi.
Okay, so one thing is very clear, that the modern Delhi's construction has always been in news, and it's a point of attraction for a lot of visitors and city dwellers. But the city is actually very ancient, and Devdutt, in just trying to explain the example of Delhi in case of the urbanization, has also traced the evolution of the city. So it's a very important question, and definitely a very important fodder for your mains examination as well when you are discussing the evolution of a city. Now, let's move to Devdutt's point to ponder. Devdutt's point to ponder today is a homework for you. How and why? I'll discuss it with you once Devdutt tells us what is his point to ponder for the urbanization topic.
Well, lots to think about urbanization, how urbanization happens, but I think we now move to the independence era, and I want you to think about, so many things happen. Well, from Harappa, from Mahajanapadas, from the temple cities, Rajamandalas. We have now, after Rajamandalas, we have got the Turko-Mughal cities or the Islamic cities, the colonial cities. How do they impact urbanization post-independence? That's the point to ponder about.
All right, then, that's a very important point to ponder. It will encapsulate whatever you have studied and then contextualizing it in the present time. So, when you're talking about post independence, that is also a part of your syllabus. If you remember, it is in your mains GS paper 1. So, when you're talking about post independence, period of urbanization, you can talk about the rapid increase in population, the coming up of capital cities like Chandigarh, Gandhinagar, and so forth. You can talk about the industrial cities, like, for example, Bhilai, Jamshedpur, Raurkela, and well, you can talk about the government's policies as well. National Smart Cities Mission, what it is. But actually, what Devdutt, I think, wants you to do is to, draw a connection between the past and the present and what is continuing and what has changed. So it's an important, interesting question to think about. And the homework is that you may write about it, you may just go back to the previous episodes, note down certain important takeaways, contextualize it in the present times, look for some post-independence period of urbanization, the major themes around it, write it and send it to us. Okay, you can write it, you can go in the comment box and post about it. It will be an interesting exercise, and your urbanization topic is over. So, what we have done so far, that is important. So, dear aspirants, it's important to understand that how we covered this topic of urbanization and how you will find it useful for your exam and preparation. Now, अगर आप देखें कि हमने किया क्या अर्बनाइजेशन टॉपिक के साथ हम कैसे आगे बढ़े, तो सबसे पहले देवदत्त ने जैसे कि स्टार्ट किया by explaining what these terms mean: urbanization, urban centers. And then he gave you a framework. He always mentions this time and space. ये टाइम एंड स्पेस फ्रेमवर्क जो है ये आपके दिमाग में रहना चाहिए, इससे स्ट्रक्चरिंग इजी हो जाती है आंसर की. So he started with the Indus civilization. Then he went to Janpada phase. He talked about temple urbanization and then Turko-Mughal phase and today colonial era. So ये एक this is a sync in the this is a flow in his lecture which is with respect to time, and he was talking about a lot of places, which is the space or the geographical part. Then there have been a definition, there are the historical periods, and then there have been certain important examples. So when we talk about examples, for example, in the temple urbanization period, important centers there. When we are talking about the colonial era, important centers there. तो आपके आर्ग्यूमेंट को सपोर्ट के लिए एग्जाम्पल्स की बहुत जरूरत है, एंड दैट इज व्हाट वी हैव डन इन दिस अर्बनाइजेशन टॉपिक ऑफ आर्ट एंड कल्चर सीरीज. तो क्या हुआ, डेफिनेशन हो गया, हिस्ट्री हो गई, आपका एग्जाम्पल्स हो गए, एंड एट टाइम्स ही इज ऑल्सो कनेक्टिंग इट टू present. Okay, bringing the past to present connection is very important because that's how examination में questions are being framed. ठीक है, तो उस पर्सपेक्टिव से आपको इन टॉपिक्स को समझना है. एंड इन द एंड व्हाट आई वुड लाइक टू से दैट आर्ट एंड कल्चर पे फोकस है हमारा. द मेजर थीम ऑफ दिस पर्टिकुलर सीरीज इज आर्ट एंड कल्चर, बट यू नो दैट the UPSC or any particular examination are interdisciplinary. So with this, the studying urbanization, for example, you would be able to answer questions on society, social issues. You can quote such examples in essays, of course, in other areas. Also preparing yourself for interview and intelligent questions. सो होलसम पढ़ाई जो है वो बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, वो कंप्लीट पैकेज जो आपको चाहिए रहता है वो यहाँ मिलता है. तो ऑलवेज रिमेंबर डेफिनेशन, हिस्ट्री, geography, examples, connecting past with present, all these things are important. And don't forget these frameworks which Devdutt uses, Lakshmi, Durga, Saraswati, time and space, which will help you in understanding these topics better. In the next episode, we'll come up with new topic. You can also suggest questions. You can write to manas.srivastav at indianexpress.com. You can also comment in the box below. Make the best use of this opportunity. Our expert, Devdutt Pattanaik, is going to answer all your questions in his unique style, in his lucid style, and in his very appreciative style of his dealing with such questions from the perspective of definition, examples, and stories. That's all from me now. We'll come back next week with a new topic. I am Manas Srivastava signing off. And before I go, think smart, work hard, conquer your goal. Bye bye.